All right, welcome to the Julia and Miguel show.
Julia
And Miguel. There we go. All right, so topics to talk about, couples, issues, whatever it may be, but I can tell you something that's on my mind, which is on a lot of people's mind.
Okay.
You don't even know what it is yet.
No, I'm curious.
Okay, we got this whole like pandemic thing, economy thing, and then possible recession. There's a lot of fear going on in people's minds right now.
Mm-hmm. My mind included.
Your mind included.
My mind included.
Okay.
I'm prone to fear issue or things that invoke fear, but let's hear your perspective first.
My perspective isn't always a popular perspective, I will say that, but you know what, it is how I choose to live my life.
That's okay.
And
I had a high school teacher that I absolutely loved in high school because he was a high school teacher, and he always said, if you stand for something, people will either love you or hate you.
There
but
you go.
You can't be in the middle.
And Dan says you got to piss off somebody by 12 o'clock, otherwise you stand for nothing. So, I mean, either way, I guess that works out. Okay, so my thing's about the positivity factor, right? Like, are you living your life in positivity, or are you just like taking in all the media and all the social media and all the negativity and being like, oh my gosh, and getting stuck in like a state of fear, right? I know for me, I taken a very minimal amount of what's out there in the media because I'm too busy like jamming my brain full of what I'm trying to accomplish and positivity, right? I'm trying to take in a positive message, and that way I can operate at a more effective level, you know, and just not be fazed by things. So I mean, that's what my recommendation to someone would be, like, hey, maybe cut back on the media. Really, you know, here's what I find the biggest thing actually when I talk to people is that people don't invest in themselves enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're too busy like watching the TV, watching the movies. You know, I get it. There's like this Baby Yoda thing. I don't know what it is. I haven't seen it. I've only heard about it. You know, Baby Yoda. You know, I think it's that Disney Channel, that like Netflix type channel that just came out.
Okay.
Now there's all those type of things, and I mean that's not that many. I know the Games of Thrones things. I've never seen any of that. I mean, just I remember one of our old friends, Michael, said it best, where he said, TV is there to pacify people, pacify their brain, pacify their thought. Mm-hmm. You know, video games kind of do the same thing, in my opinion. You know, I used to be a video game addict in high school, I remember, before I
Met me.
kicked video games to the curb, because I look back, I remember all the time I was investing in these games, and I could do so well. I'd go to arcades and like cream people. I'd bet money and I would win money, but then it's like, I look back on where did that get me? Nowhere, right? And I used to say, gosh, where would I be if I was like reading books and educating myself and putting stuff into action instead? Well, it's the same thing with this. The only difference is now I'm actually educating myself, and it helps me deal with whatever's going on. And I personally do not feel affected by what's going on. Like I always say, you know, like, because we own a business, and I've been telling her as of recent, like, the business can go out of business. I'm fine with that, because I'm going to make something work some way or another, and I'll be able to still give back to the people that we're trying to help in some way or another as well. But for the people out there, I think it's changing the mindset. It's a huge thing, you know, because if you're just living in fear or living in the thought process of scarcity, it just makes life a lot more challenging.
Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that perspective, and I can understand that if you are really involved in consuming the media right now, it would be easy to become negative or fearful. I think my issue is a little bit different in that instead of consuming a lot of media, I might see or hear a little headline, and then I let my imagination go. So on that side of the fence, and I've always been like that. Like, my imagination can go, you know, like crazy on the what if scale pretty quickly. And so what I recommend, and what Miguel's been encouraging me to do and really practice, is fill my mind. Well, I guess it's the same concept. It's just even if you're not consuming a lot of media, and you feel that fear factor start to set in because of the what ifs playing in your head.
What if?
Right. I could do that all day and get nowhere. But even if that's your issue, and you're more aligned with like my side, where I'm not watching everything, but I'm still kind of like imagining, it is so important to stay focused on your goals. If you don't have goals, set goals. To keep consuming all of the positive reading that you can, positive podcasts. You know, just keep filling your brain with what's possible, what you have control over. My sister's mentioned that recently, you know, like I was asking her about like how she's doing with her kids, because with my children, or our children,
Your children,
you
my
know,
children.
I felt like my tension or unsurety was kind of rubbing off on them, you know, and so she gave me similar advice where she said, you know, you can focus on what you can control, because what's outside of your control, you're going to drive yourself crazy, drive the girls crazy. So, I mean, I agree with it. You know, it's just constantly filling your mind with the positive that you can.
Yeah, it feels like you make your mind not able to take the negativity in it because you're overflowing with the amount of other stuff you're working on.
Yeah.
You know, I found for myself especially, it's like, you know, like I've recently created my own planner in a way, like I'm approaching how to like live my days, you know, from waking till sleeping, you know, just basically just like, this is how my life is going to flow. I feel like there's good things coming on. I'm technically on day 7. I'm going to go in 21-day increments, so it's 7 of 21 so far, first time around. And I really feel like, hey, good things are happening, you know? And because of that, I don't know, I hear so many people just talking about what's going on. I'm not seeing the same thing. It's like during the last economic downturn, we didn't necessarily like get affected by it, you know? I remember because the housing bubble 2007, 2008, like I remember like, maybe like business that we were involved in wasn't like, you know, it had slowed down, but we found ways around it. And I think that's the biggest thing is, well, as soon as the start of this started happening, right, I told everybody, it's like, don't just sit on your hands and wait for whatever to happen and complain that life isn't working out for you. Like, take action, like figure out what you can do and take action. And I mean, I have a couple emails and texts and stuff of people like thanked me for like getting on their cases just because of that. Because if you're not going to deal with whatever's happening, life's going to pass you by and you're not going to be where you want to be.
True.
Right? And so that, I think that's the biggest thing is think for the future, think for what are you doing now? How can that affect your future? I mean, yesterday we had some breakthroughs on what we were working on because we were working on that moment, but then like stuff hit us in the process and like, hey, this is the future. I think that's what they say, like action brings opportunity.
It also, I just saw this, beats anxiety, right?
Action beats anxiety. Craig Ballantyne. But
I mean, it was good. It got stuck in my head, and it makes sense because that is also for the concept of, you know, the what if factor. Like, you could run on what ifs forever
most
and
definitely
be scared of doing anything, or you can take action and get over that anxiety.
You know, I guess one thing that's been going through my mind as a reason, I've heard several people say this, and I think it was most popular during the housing bubble incident was like people saying, I am not going to participate in this recession. I mean, because the recession's going to hit, right? We were talking a little bit about that last night. Like, you know, they say like recessions, this one possibly might be 12 to 15 months out. I mean, I don't know. I'm not what do they call it? Like a statistician? I don't know, something like that. Either way, yeah, there's going to be some, how would you say, maybe some big, there's going to be some big repercussions of what's coming from this whole economic shutdown that we're experiencing right now. And so because of that, people's lives are going to be affected, right? So I think it's your ability to be able to look at what you're doing now and what you can do to change for the future. Because if you just get in a state of being scared, I mean, you either have 2 different options depending on the type of person you are. It's either fight or flight, right? And or freeze.
Don't look at me. That's a different topic.
but it's just that, you know, and it's like my thing that I personally try to live by is like, I'm gonna fight. You know, I always say, like, if anyone's going to kill me, it's going to be me, okay? So
or me holding because I froze in the heat of everything.
So, you know, I think it's just that where it's like so many people, when this whole thing started, you know, their businesses had to close and stuff, people started saying like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't what I wanted, you know, and they started to freeze. And I'm like, you can't freeze, you got to take action, you know? And I think it's not just, I mean, if this weren't even the situation, if he just lived every life like this, I remember Zig Ziglar had a thing in one of his tapes about like the opportunity, if you had an opportunity to go to Acapulco tomorrow, go golfing right now, you know, and it's like, how much could you get done like the next 24 hours, you know, versus if you just sit there and wait and wait and wait. And I think that's what people are always waiting. Like, what are you waiting for? And I feel like even as much as I pushed in my own past, I'm feeling like, holy smokes, I'm moving too slow. Like, especially last night, that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I am moving way too slow. And it's pretty crazy because this will sound bad, but I think in some ways this whole incident with like the quarantine, also, it's kind of a good thing. I mean, it's allowed us time to kind of sit back and look at like, what are we doing in life right now? And then how can we make it better? How can we make it more efficient? How can we get to our goals quicker? You know, as a side benefit, I mean, especially for relationships, and one thing that we both noticed is usually in our neighborhood, we don't see a whole lot of people out walking around, especially in a family, but we've seen that recently. And that's pretty darn cool, like to see like actually like both parents and the children out walking as a family, which never happens. You know, we're like the odd ones out, like, oh, we're gonna walk around as a family. You know, and people with their dogs are like, oh, here comes a weird family. And now it's like, hey, there's actually people coming out. So there's a good thing. I think people are kind of like, I don't know if we call it exploring or rediscovering family, but in the process, they're actually, you know, learning more about themselves. Hopefully, you know, but in the end, how do you deal with the stress? How do you deal with this whole situation right now? I just feel like you gotta think on the positive mindset, pick action, and get to where you want to go a little bit faster. I think that's the only thing. And I get it, people's hands will be tied by things that they can't do in the economy. I mean, if they have to look for work, if they have to, I don't know, whatever it may be, but that's where like the positive mindset really kicks in. If you don't have a positive mindset, I don't know. Yeah, I would say I feel sorry for you, but you really just got to change. You know, that's how it is.
Well, choose to change.
Choose to change.
And I think, if you don't mind, I'll wrap it up with this, because you said something that struck a chord with me, because you said, you know, I'm sure many people won't agree with me, and then I was like, oh, what was I going to say?
Well, I like to be politically incorrect. All my clients know that. I was like, I'm politically incorrect, but
right, you said that even though this quarantine is bad, you know,
it's done some good things.
It's done some good things, and so what I wanted to leave people with is the fact that yes, it's a bad thing, but you know, so. The story that you brought to mind was there were these competitors where they won like a large competition. I'm not even gonna pretend like I know which competition it was, but they won a large competition, and when interviewed afterwards, they talked about the year prior when they had lost the same competition, and they said, you know, there was nothing worse. It was the worst thing, and that's what took them from that year to winning, because they had that feeling and they had that negativity, right? Something bad happened to them, and they said, okay, well, I don't like this, right? They first made the decision, like, okay, definitely don't want this to ever happen again, and then they took action. If they had just said, like, that sucks, we're losers, then they would have been done, right?
Yeah.
But they took action. They said, okay, we don't want that to happen again. What do we need to do to be the champions next year? They did it, and then they sat there on their interview explaining, you know, we went from losing.
We knew exactly what happened.
They knew exactly what happened, because everyone was like, oh, how did you make this happen? They knew exactly what happened, because they took that terrible thing, right, that happened to them, and they took action to change it. So I felt like, you know, wanted to kind of leave you with that, because we're not saying it's a good thing. No, it's terrible, and there should be good things that always come from bad things, because you make the choice to take it, learn from it, take action, make things better.
Every cloud has a silver lining.
True.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel. What do they say? Hit that bell. Bing, bing, bong, bong. Right? And other than that,
I don't know if anybody says that, but
they
okay.
do. They say bing, 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 bong, bong. You know, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And yeah, stay tuned. We'll be talking about more couples, topics, and the like. All right. Thank you, guys.
Take care.